Buddha once said there's three things that are required in the world for a Buddha to arise in the world. That make it suitable for a Buddha to come into the world. Those three things are probably not what you're thinking. They're old age, sickness and death. Because human beings are subject to aging, sickness and death, this means it's appropriate for a Buddha to arise in the world. And the Buddha said the Buddha brings with him the Dhamma, which is like a light, which sheds a light, showing you the way out of aging, sickness and death. And even the Buddha himself, before he was a Buddha, when he was still a bodhisattva, a young man, these were three things that he never encountered, never thought about. So it's no different from us. Nobody in the world likes to talk about aging, sickness and death. We all try to avoid them because they're very confronting experiences or part of life. But they're actually inevitable for all of us. They're the very few things we can be sure will happen to us in this life. Is that we will get older, we will face sickness, and one day we must die. So the Buddha, as a bodhisattva, a young man, he went out into the town and he was really struck when he encountered sick people, aging people, or when he saw a funeral, because it was so different from everything else he was normally involved with. Normally his father ensured that he had every kind of comfort and convenience, every kind of pleasure, good food, good clothes, good education, all the comforts, power, fame, everything he had, with no mention of aging, sickness and death. So when he left the palace to go into the town, he had to do it in secret. It was a course for him to really be confronted by these truths and realize that, with all the best things that the world can provide us, all the pleasures, the happiness that's available, we still have to deal with aging, sickness and death. But then he saw the samana, he saw a monk walking through town, and that was like the ray of light, the hope, but there's a way out of this. And so that was his motivation to practice before he was the Buddha, before he became enlightened. He was to find a way to some kind of lasting peace, happiness, and you might say freedom from aging, sickness and death. And that's what Nibbana is, and the goal of our practice. You notice aging, sickness and death are very ordinary experiences, so ordinary that we just don't think about them very much. We take them for granted in the sense we just accept them, that's part of life, but we don't actually train ourselves how to deal with them very well. And so when they come along in our lives, often we're not ready and they overwhelm us. It's not pleasant getting older because your body changes, you can't do things so well, your faculties degenerate, your eyesight, hearing, get aches and pains, can't run around so much the older you get. If you get sick, you don't recover so quickly or so well the older you get. And we tend to get more sickness the older we get. And then the thought of death, whether it's the death of our loved ones or our own death, we don't even want to contemplate it and think about it. It's so against everything else that we seek in life. In life we seek enjoyment, we seek to do things, achieve things, which is correct, but then we put off thinking about the inevitability of death. So the Buddha encouraged us to reflect on this every single day of our life, to remind ourselves of the truth. Remind yourselves that you will get older, you will get sick, you will die. These are just normal experiences, but to make yourself mindful of them. Why would he do that? Is he trying to make us depressed and unhappy? No, he's trying to help us be more peaceful, more happy by giving us understanding. And to understand something, you have to think about it. You have to get to know it, become wise to it. With aging, sickness and death, we also get separation. And we also, as we get older, we get sicker, and once we face death, we're facing separation from everything that we love and like, everything we're used to. This is going to happen for sure. So it's in our own interest to prepare ourselves and understand better how to deal with these things. But luckily we have a way to deal with these truths, and that is the path of practice that the Buddha gave us. So it's based, first of all, on the practice of generosity. So if somebody doesn't know how to be generous, and not just generous on the outside, but have generosity of heart or charity in the heart, it's very difficult for them to move on towards learning the Dhamma and progressing to find, to develop their mind, to find peace, understanding. So he would give examples, like you've probably all heard the stories of the the misers that the Buddha would talk about. You know, people who become very wealthy, but they're very attached to their wealth to the point where they won't even let themselves enjoy it, let alone other people. There's the old miser who goes out into the forest just to have his bowl of milk rice milk, that he loves to have, his favourite food, but he's so afraid other people are going to pinch it from him. He goes way out into the forest so he can just sit down and have his bowl of rice milk on his own. And you know, he's got enough gold in his house that he could have rice milk rice, or any other kind of food as much as he wants, but still he's so attached, he just goes out into the forest to enjoy it. Even the devas tried to help him out of that situation. One deva changed into a dog, came up to try and pinch some of the milk rice. Others came, changed themselves into different forms to try and make him practice generosity and share it with them. It's so stingy, he wasn't interested. So the Buddha said someone like that is very difficult to learn, difficult to grow in the Dhamma, difficult to develop the qualities we need to be good human beings and to face with some of the challenges of life. So he always said generosity is the beginning of the practice. It doesn't mean to say going without yourself, because you also have to look after yourself, but you know how to share, how to give, how to share. It's a very important starting point in our practice. So, you see, Buddhists regularly practice dana. Practicing dana with monks is one special kind of generosity, because when you practice dana, you support monks, they go on to do excuse me, a lot more good in the world. So that generosity generates a lot more benefit for many, many people. So you support the Sangha can lead, can practice, give teachings back to the community. So that dana, the generosity you practice, is a very valuable kind of dana. So we were just talking about Hong Kong. So maybe there's less monks, Sangha, living in Hong Kong. This is, you can see when there are less Sangha around, the practice doesn't go so well. You don't have places to go and make merit, to make offerings, to listen to the teachings, practice meditation perhaps. So you see the value of Sangha, supporting Sangha. This is another factor the Buddha said is invaluable in our life, to have noble ones, teachers, guides, good friends who will lead us in the right direction. So a good friend, often it's Sangha, but also lay people can be a good friend to other practitioners as well. But the good friend will always lead us in the right direction. They'll encourage us to practice, to develop generosity, to develop sila, keep the precepts, live our lives in a harmless way where we're not taking advantage of others or harming others, and to develop meditation, the qualities of mindfulness and wisdom. a good friend will always encourage us to do that. Say there's a meditation course, they'll say, go on the meditation course, you'll learn something. Or some monks come into town, I'll go to those monks, make offerings. A good friend is like this. The bad friend will say, don't waste your time. Let's go and have some fun, let's go to the casino, or go out to some party, don't waste your money practicing charity. Or they'll say, don't worry about the precepts, they just make life inconvenient. Just do exactly what you want, what you feel like, and don't care about other people, don't worry about the consequences. Just seek your happiness now, in the here and now, and don't worry about tomorrow. Or if it's time to meditate, the bad friend will say, don't waste your time meditating, don't go and do all that stuff, closing your eyes, watching your breath, you won't learn anything. Maybe they'll tell you that people who meditate become kind of a bit stupid and they can't be relied on, or they don't understand the world and so they can't get on in the world. That's the bad friend. But the good friend, and particularly Sangha, won't do that. They'll lead you in the right direction in your life. They'll remind you of what is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong. What ways of living will lead to your progress and your happiness. What ways of living will lead you to your decline and to your suffering. They'll point this out to you so you get reminders and guides how to live your life. What are the best things to develop and focus on in your life? What are the things you should get rid of and abandon from your life? They'll give you that instruction. So the noble ones and the Sangha are our most valuable resource in the world. But often we forget that, because people who practice well, and particularly Sangha, they tend to be very humble and very non-intrusive. They're not out to bother people or convert people or make a big impact in society. They just go about their business practicing very quietly, very humbly. So often we overlook the value of Sangha. We tend to, you don't see much in the news about Sangha. In the news it's all about politics and celebrities and things that are going on in the world that seem very important. You don't hear much news about the Sangha going about their business, teaching the Dhamma. It's not newsworthy, but it's going on. So it's up to us to bring our mind to recognize the value of the Sangha, the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha, bring them into our lives, bringing them into our hearts every day. So one way is, on occasions like this, you come to meet Sangha, make offerings, listen to the Dhamma. Sometimes we don't have the chance to do that, so we can also listen to the Dhamma through other sources, other media. But it's up to us to make this effort to give up our time for us, our practice, and to learn the teachings and practice these teachings. Because this will only bring you more peace, more happiness, more brightness to your mind. The Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha don't lead you to darkness, to suffering, to despair. They only lead you in the right direction. But it's for us to make that effort and to incline our minds to the Dhamma, to the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Nobody can force this on us in the end. Friends will encourage us. They encourage us to practice. They say, let's go, let's do something. They can give us good advice. They can to listen to us and maybe remind us of some of the teachings. But they can't force us. Nobody can force you to practice. It has to come through your own realization, where you realize, if I'm suffering in my life, if things are going wrong, I'm suffering, this is coming from me. We have to take responsibility for our own karma, our own thoughts, our own actions. They come from us, and other people can only influence us a little bit. So a lot of Buddhist practice is about learning to turn our attention inwards, to get to understand ourselves or get to know ourselves better. We love to look at other people all the time. We're comparing, thinking about our friends, work colleagues, looking at the news, looking at what other people are doing. And we do this so much that we forget to look at ourselves. Ajahn Chah used to say, spend maybe 90% of your energy getting to know yourself, understanding yourself, becoming more mindful of yourself, and just 10% of your energy looking and learning from others. We do need to learn from others and be aware of the world, what's going on, but just 10% is enough. But usually we're doing it the other way around, where we look at ourselves 10% of the time and we're looking out at the rest of the world 90% of the time. We're always thinking, oh, they're doing this, they're doing that, should I do, this is right, this is wrong, and just looking and comparing and often getting very caught up in the world and the things of the world. And often it doesn't have much relationship to our life. We have opinions on other people and the things that are going on in the world, but really it's not that relevant to us, a lot of it. More valuable would be to learn to turn attention inwards, develop more awareness, and look at our mind, look at the quality of our mind. Is it, we say, wholesome and skillful? Our thoughts, our intentions from moment to moment through our day. How wholesome are they? How skillful? How much are we developing our mind in a good way, or how much are we just letting our mind run according to our moods, following our desires, our greed, our worries, our fears, our anger? A lot of the time when we're not aware, because we're spending so much time looking out at the world, we're not aware that we're following greed or anger in our own hearts, and it's causing us suffering. The Buddha said the three things that cause us suffering are greed, anger, and delusion. And he compared them to like fires. But these fires are going on inside, in our heart. So every time you follow a thought of greed and you act on it, it's like that fire is getting bigger. Every time we give in to our anger and we follow that anger, say something, do something, or even just thinking thoughts of anger, it's like a fire getting bigger. If there was a fire in your house, you wouldn't neglect it, would you? You would quickly put it out, or you find the fire brigade or someone to help you put it out. Because fires grow and they're destructive and they cause all kinds of problems. But the fires in our heart, we often ignore. We're stressed, we're unhappy. The causes are right here, but we're just letting it happen, letting it take place. So we're the ones who have to take responsibility for our own heart, looking after it. And our practice is always to find ways to reduce greed, anger, delusion, and increase the opposites, increase the non-greed, so generosity, contentment, goodwill for others, increase non-anger, so it's kindness, compassion, increase non-delusion, which means bringing up more awareness, more clear understanding of things, more clarity and more wisdom. How do we become wiser? We have to listen to the teachings and then bring them into our heart and observe for ourselves what's going on. And when you're very clear, you'll see, if I hold on to an angry thought, I'm suffering. If I hold on to a thought of greed, I'm suffering. If you can see that, then you have the motivation to let them go from your mind. You say, I'm not going to follow this. If I follow my greed, it means maybe I get jealous of somebody, or I'm competing with somebody else. Maybe I get very disappointed when I don't get the thing that I'm greedy for, so I get upset. Anger is usually easier to see, isn't it? When we're angry, we're vaguely aware, I'm suffering. But still, we often feel we should be angry because something bad has happened, and we hold on to our angry thoughts, that emotion. But when you practice mindfulness and investigation, you're seeing the opposite. You're saying, oh no, it's not right to hold on to anger. I'm suffering. I don't want to suffer. I'm going to let it go. I'll forgive them, or I'll accept what's happened. With greed, often we have to accept you're not going to get everything you want in life. Sometimes we have to find contentment with what we have got and appreciate that. And there are more things we may attain, may have, but we're not going to get everything we have to recognize that fact. The hardest thing to see is delusion. Delusion is deluding. We don't know, we don't see. They once asked Ajahn, how do we see delusion? Where is delusion? It's deluding. He said, you're like someone riding a horse asking where the horse is. It's there all the time, affecting our mind. We misunderstand things. We don't see the truth. So say you are angry. The delusion is we think I'm correct to be angry. I should be angry because someone did something that annoyed me. But you're not seeing, by holding on to your anger, you're suffering. Or when we have greed, we say, this thing is good, this thing is right, it's correct for me, I should have it, I want it. But you're not seeing that wanting is causing you suffering in your mind. As long as you don't get it, you're frustrated, you're unhappy. Even when you get it, you're worried you'll lose it. So delusion is like this, it cuts off the mind. We don't see the truth, we don't recognize where our suffering has come from. And again, we tend to attribute our suffering always to something external. So easiest thing is blame someone else. I'm suffering because of them. More often than not, it's the person closest to us. So my husband, my wife, my parent, my brother, my sister, my friend, we say I'm suffering because of them. We're not saying that suffering arises here. It's actually because we are not aware enough, not clear enough to look after our mind. Or there was a man in Penang who said, all my suffering is because of the government. They're the easiest scapegoat, isn't it? I'm feeling sick today, it must be the government. Everything is back to the government. Whoever becomes the scapegoat, that's the easy way, that's the deluded way. We just blame them for our problems. But it's not correct, is it? The more mindful you become, you realize suffering starts here, it ends here as well. So we have to learn to look after this mind. This is why we learn to practice mindfulness, keep precepts, practice dana. All the different things we do as Buddhists are helping us to understand this mind better and free it from greed, anger and delusion. They're not just fires. The Buddha also said they're like slaves. Right? We've got this slave driver in our mind who's always telling us, you need this to be happy, get this, get that. If you get rid of this person or this thing, then you'll be happy, so get rid of them. So we've always got greed and aversion going on in our mind. It's like a slave driver bossing us around, nagging us. Nobody likes to be bossed around, but they don't realize the biggest boss is here. He's in our own head, our own heart. Again, we usually blame someone else, or they're always nagging me, giving me trouble. But the real trouble is here. When you meditate, you start to see that. And at first it's a challenge, but as you keep practicing, and you gain some understanding, you realize what you have to do. And you say, I have to let go. I can't keep following this voice, the voice of greed, anger, delusion. I have to start ignoring it sometimes. It can still be there, but I'm not going to follow it. I know it's just a voice in the back of my head. It's just a desire coming up. And this is where you start to become more peaceful, because you accept the truth, you don't fight it, your mind understands better, so your mind becomes peaceful, becomes calm. So where does the biggest resistance or the biggest fire come in our life? Well, it's with aging, sickness and death. And these are the three things we least want. Nobody wants to get older, get sick, nobody wants to face death. That's where you have to practice. Bring your mind back to accepting this is the truth of things. The world is impermanent. This life is impermanent. Rather than always chasing after our desires and getting disappointed, I'm going to stick my mind with the Dhamma. I'll trust the Dhamma of the Buddha, bring the Dhamma into my heart, so that my heart and the Dhamma are one. So I see the truth, I understand the truth. Then you don't have to fear anything, because you know how things are, the way things are. You know the world is impermanent. You know things shouldn't be grasped at as self. This is something that often is very hard to understand at first, but you just have to think about it a little bit more deeply. If you can let go of the sense of ownership, even of these thoughts that come up, the greed, the anger, if you can see, well, I don't have to hold on to them, cling on to them in my mind, I can let go of them. Then you're seeing not self, you're seeing these things are not part of who you are, they're just passing visitors to the mind. You know, a thought of greed, a thought of anger, it comes into your mind for a while and then it passes away. So it's not a self, it's not who you really are. If you have enough awareness and understanding to see that, then you can let go more and more. You let go of the causes of suffering, your mind becomes free. You're still alive, you're still living in the world and engaging with people, so it's not like you suddenly become a non-person. But your view changes. You start to let go of the causes of suffering because you realize they're not self anyway. This sense of self is the biggest delusion, where we identify with all our moods as me, mine, myself, and then we suffer. But as you train the mind in mindfulness and wisdom, you see more closely. They're not self. They're something that come and go, I can let them go. It's not like they're there all the time. The more you see this, the more freedom you have. You can see your mind can actually change for the better. It doesn't always have to be just following, getting stressed, following greed, following anger. It can actually rise above it, go beyond it, let these things go. So the Buddhist path is a very positive, optimistic path because it's based on the understanding human beings can change. We can change ourselves through the practice. We can let go of bad habits, we can let go of attachments, we can develop good habits, we can develop good qualities. We can do that, but we have to practice. It's up to us to do it. So maybe I'll leave these thoughts with you today. Encourage you all to keep up your practice and your thoughts will only bring you benefit.